Hey guys, thanks for tuning in again to the Detour Live. I'm your host Dan Jones, joined by disorganised John Trevorrow, four-time national champion from Australia, and a friend of the podcast, Michael Rogers, joins us again. We're super pumped because he's been given a promotion at the UCI. He's now head of road and innovation. Dodge, welcome back to the Detour, mate.
Hello, Dan. Hello, John. Good to see you again.
Good to see you, mate. Now, you are coming live from the World Track Championships in Roubaix. What's the atmosphere like? It's obviously the area's supposed to be fizzing after epic Paris-Roubaix a couple of weeks ago.
Well, yeah, absolutely right. I mean, the World Championship started yesterday. Basically, the team events, teams pursuits, team sprints started qualifications. Finals of the team sprint, finals today of team pursuits, and a whole other group of racing. Really excited. It seems to be almost a rebuild of track teams, particularly after the Olympic Games. A lot of the nations are sending their younger riders, or a mix of experienced riders and younger riders. So it really is quite refreshing to see that new generation starting to come through.
Unfortunately, I was we're just talking off air, but Australia couldn't be there. A mixture of all of the COVID situation and problems that's been facing us. Very unusual, especially the team's pursuit, as you mentioned. And you're saying that a final tonight, Italy and France rode their fastest ever time to make that final against Italy. Should be a cracker.
It should be, John. Absolutely right. It was fantastic to see France back in the mix. Home crowd. Well, as much crowd as there is. We're under very tight COVID restrictions here with the bubble. The French federations have put very stringent regulations on the entire race, and so the crowd is very limited. But there is a good feeling. There is this kind of fresh air of new talent coming through, particularly after the Olympic Games. But really looking forward to the final tonight on the men's team pursuit. As France did their best ever time they've ever done in the history of France. I think they did 3:47, which was a fantastic ride in the semi-final. To me, Italy just seems to be at another level. Of course, having Ghana in the team once again will be a huge benefit to them. But if I can just comment on the side with Ghana, I mean, this guy is just phenomenal. I mean, he won the World Time Trial Championships just weeks ago. He was at the European Track Championships the week before this. He was at the Olympic Games. He's been racing all year. I mean, how much talent has this guy got?
He's the Mick Rogers of 2021, mate.
He is. Yeah. If I could do 50% of what he did, I mean, it would still be a successful career.
Well, it was a big year for the UCI. I've been talking about the teams pursuit. I mean, one of the big topics was obviously at the Olympics with our old mates, the Danes, with what was it? They had the tape on all the legs, and that caused the big stink at the time. Just another day in the job, Mick.
Well, I was very much in the middle of that, Dan, and I think it just underlines the extremity that teams are now going to push performance. Now, the jury is still out whether it was a aerodynamic advantage, what they would call that kind of within the cycling world as an air trip. So, in essence, placing that tape on a limb or on a leading edge of a part of a bicycle, in essence, creates an aerodynamic advantage. But this one was very tricky, if I can say it that way, because we do have regulations that say nothing can be applied to the skin to change what we call in UCI talk is change the morphology of the rider. However, there are legitimate cases for the use of kinesio tape. And our feeling was that if a precedent is set, particularly around the use of tape, and we had to disqualify the team right there, right then everyone who has a legitimate cause for the use of kinesio tape on a knee or an injured area, they would also be in the place to be disqualified. So we do need to make the regulations clearer. We do need to make a change there, but I think it does underline the complexity and the difficulty in creating a rule, because there's always a grey area of a rule, and it's very hard to make it just completely black or white, because there are, again, legitimate causes for tapes, and we'd hate to exclude those people that have legitimate causes.
So the Danes obviously all had the same injury at the same time in the same
Correct.
event. I mean, what are the odds? But hey, what are the odds?
Yeah, what are the odds? Yeah.
If I was working at the UCI, the amount of times I'd be going up to teams just going, fellas, come on. Like, I know it's in the rules, but come on. Like, it's clear, it's obvious. We know what's going on here. Let's just, in the spirit of the game, come on. But, you know,
those conversations kind of, yeah. I mean, I just would like to take this point is just to underline the direction the teams are going, and the gains that can be taken from aerodynamic advantage, because they simply are going so fast now, Dan. When you're riding at 70 kilometers an hour, you know, a small aerodynamic advantage can give you that winning edge. I mean, we saw in the final between the Italians and the Danish in the men's team pursuit final, the winning margin was literally centimeters. And teams will just go to any extent, you know, playing within the rules. We also starting to see, I think the Danish were riding what I call is dangerous positions, where they're putting their head down and in essence not watching where they're going at all. And in the semi-finals, we saw a great example of that when the Danish ran up the back of I think it was the third rider of the English team. Yeah. And John, I think you would be a fan of this rule. And when all of our parents first told us how to ride a bike, what was the first thing they always said? Yeah. John, watch where you're going.
Exactly.
And we don't feel, the UCI doesn't feel that we need to put rule, you know, Article 1.000, watch where you're going. But anyway, it seems we have to be stronger with the teams and the nations about these facts, because when we start to abandon the basic rules in order to achieve an aerodynamic gain, I think we're starting to take the sport, I think, in a different direction, and we may have to intervene there, which is, I think, disappointing for us.
Well, at least you know the Aussies are honest. We couldn't even get our bikes right. It's like we're not doing anything on the slide.
Well, and you raise another good point there, Dan. And I'm putting my technical hat on. Is we're now starting to see new manufacturing processes, you know, 3D printing coming in, and the current UCI regulations probably are not, I would say, aligned to new manufacturing processes, such as where the manufacturing process enables the bar to be one piece. The UCI regulations are written for a traditional handlebar, a base bar, and then there's a clip-on extension or aero bar with a separate elbow pad. But now, with, again, thanks to 3D technology, we're starting to see all those pieces integrated into one. And in the field, our commissaires are finding it difficult to apply the regulations to these new generation of handlebars. You know, where does the elbow pad finish, and where does the aero bar start? Now it's just one piece. So we're at a really interesting place, I think, exciting place. We're at this intersection of kind of technology and traditional cycling, where athlete becomes or is first prior to machine. So athletic endeavor should be in principle before the technology. So we're at this really, really interesting intersection between the two, and there's no doubt, you know, our regulations, particularly on the technical side, probably do need a revision.
Is it sort of getting hard with so much advancement in technology that there's a balance between, you don't want to inhibit people making developments, but at the same time, you don't want them to create such a gap that, you know, it's not evening the sport, or as you said, it's not driven by the athletic performance.
So we love innovation. We love this innovation, and I had this conversation with a lot of the nations already yesterday here at the Track World Championships. You know, the UCI is not about preventing innovation. We're not about preventing technology, but we do feel, or one of the principles of the UCI is that it's the athlete that comes first, and finding that where that line sits, respecting the athlete, respecting both sides, that's the difficult part. And it was on, what was it? It was on Tuesday evening. We had a meeting with all track nations, everyone present here, team managers. Some of those had their performance directors there as well. We started to put together a framework of how we see equipment, particularly in track cycling, progressing over the next 2 Olympic cycles. And we're trying to put that framework together. Okay, what makes sense? What changes make sense to put in place now prior to Paris 2024? Because we are literally 3 years away. Some of those nations have already committed funds to developing new material for the 2024. But we're also talking about textile technologies, because some of the biggest advancements in performance are thanks to textile technologies. And that's another place that's really innovating. So it's not only about the bike, it's not only about the helmets, but it's also about the textiles and the holistic, I think, performance of the athlete, which includes bikes, wheels, handlebars, clothing, helmets, shoes, everything. So it is complex, but it's very exciting.
Can you give us insight? I was just going to say a quick insight into how the decisions are then made. So is it a boardroom where you say, right, guys, we're just going to put a cap on this? Or can you give us insight into the process? So,
yeah, sure. So in my case, I work within the UCI Innovation Department. I have a couple of people around. I have a couple of young engineers, very energetic cyclists that really have a degree in engineering. So we go out, talk with the teams, we put a proposal together, okay? Then it would normally go to the UCI Technical Commission, which has members from some of the professional cycling team representatives are there, such as AIGCP, which represents the teams. We have a member from AOC, which represents the majority of the race organisers, such as ASO, the Tour of Italy organiser, the Tour of Flanders organiser. They put a representative on our board. The Riders Union also places a representative on our board. And we have guests come in as well. If we need a specific expert on a specific topic, we will invite a guest to provide we hope, a neutral opinion. If the Technical Commission approve that proposal, it then goes to the UCI Management Committee Board to make that new regulation or vote on that regulation and have the final say if that regulation would be put into the complete UCI regulations that have many chapters and is a book probably about that thick. So there is quite a process, and the time between making the proposal about the rule change and that being written into the UCI regulations could be anywhere between 6 months to 1 year.
We've had a few live comments. Wendy Superfan says, does the UCI and manufacturers get together to discuss rules and regulations? And Sally wants to know the same thing. Do the UCI engage with the manufacturers?
We absolutely do. So one of the members that I didn't mention before was we have an industrial representation. It's called the World Federation of the World WFSIG. Sorry, I always get that mixed up, and sorry if I butchered that name. It's in essence.
Could you imagine if he was on a board like this?
Sorry. So it's an acronym that's so, and I get it all mixed up. Sorry, but in essence, they represent all the brands: Shimano, Trek, Specialized, just to name a few. Actually, I'm having a meeting with Robert, who's a very, very nice person, directly after our meeting here as well. So they also represent, we have that manufacturer representative on the board, and they voice their opinion on these things. So we go out to them to quite a lot, actually, to help us with various projects that we're working on, because they really do have an input. Like for us, the UCI, sometimes it will be so much work for us to implement a strategy, whereas the manufacturers probably already have the answer. So we rely quite heavily on them.
Iffy?
No, it's interesting. And what you said before made me think, with that situation with the Danish team when they ran to the back of the dropped third rider, you can understand if the aerodynamics mean that with your head down, you're going to go faster. The lead guy's going to do that for sure. So I suppose it's a matter of making the aerodynamics just as good when you are looking forward. Wouldn't that be the answer to both of those?
Well, I think the most optimal position is to get that head as low as you can. There's no doubt about that. And anyone that's been to the wind tunnel and spent time in there knows that placing the head very low, you can get the most aerodynamic advantage. But of course, it's a balance of the two. Yes, you get a 1 second time gain over X kilometers, but if you crash into the barrier or you crash into a traffic island in the middle of the road, then that gain, the time that you spent on the ground and 30 seconds dusting yourself off and getting back on your bike again, the difference between the two doesn't add up. I can see where this will go. Do we start to see, when you're climbing, is it rock climbing or cliff climbing? When you have those glasses, you can see what's going up. Yeah. Someone will come up with these things, or a camera, and we don't want those technologies in the sport. It is the rider first, and the athlete, I think, must adhere to the rules for the safety of everyone.
Yeah, but you could always put one of those stickers on objects may be closer than they appear or whatever, just to give them the heads up when they're looking at the mirror. But Carolyn's got a question. She says, Michael, will the UCI keep the 6.8 kilogram weight limit for bikes, as some manufacturers are making lighter bikes?
There's currently no talk at the UCI at the moment or amongst the industry about decreasing that weight. I basically see the weight of every bike that's being used within UCI sanctioned races, whether it's here in the Velodrome, at the Track World Championships, whether it was just recently at the World Championships in Flanders for the road. Disc brake bikes are still around 7, the best 7.2, 7.1 kilograms. Some of the women racers, or the women cyclists, I should say, who are a little bit shorter, they can approach 6.9. Very, very rarely do we see the bikes go into 6.8, particularly with, as I mentioned, disc brakes, with power meters and all the kind of onboard technology that some of the riders are carrying now. They very, very rarely go on 6.8.
Is the track limit the same, or is the track lighter?
It is, John. It is, and that's an interesting one. Because track bikes obviously don't have the whole drive chain, such as gears, or the derailleurs and cassettes, nor brakes. But for some funny reason, and I think that's just been in the regulation, I think ever since the Lugano Charter, which was developed by the UCI Management Committee back in 1996, and kind of in essence has set the trajectory for bike design. I think, since 1996, what's that? That's approaching 25, 26 years. The Lugano Charter mentioned 6.8 across all disciplines.
Now, one other big talking point this year, and it always pops up, the Tour de France. There was, a handful of riders saying, we could hear certain bikes were making different sounds in the peloton, and they're trying to point the finger at, all the hitters. I mean, the sound could have been windburn for a lot of these guys, but the UCI did a lot of checks, Dodge, at the tour for the bikes. Do you want to give us a bit of insight into how that process works when you're looking for things like mechanical doping?
Sure. So I suppose there's been quite a lot of press in the background that was very critical of the initial technology that the UCI implemented back in 2015, which was in essence an iPad with a magnet that was able to pick up when higher density steel materials were present in the frame. So it was a magnetic driven technology. We still use that technology today. It gives insight into the amount of high density materials within the bicycle, and motors or any kind of system or energy accumulation systems are usually created with high density materials. 2017, I think it was, off the top of my head, the UCI introduced a completely new X-ray machine. It was basically an X-ray machine placed on a trailer. The bike is inserted into the trailer. It's all closed up. It's all sealed by lead because there are actually X-ray imaging technology in there. Takes a picture of the bike, and we literally see everything within that bike. So from the cables of the electronic gearing, we see what's inside the wheels. We see everything. So that's a trailer. Very, very expensive. The UCI invested literally millions of Australian dollars into this kind of technology. We currently tow that trailer around to all the races, or most of the particularly World Tour races and World Championships on the track and the road and mountain bike. However, we are limited to the boundaries of Europe and the cost associated with dragging a couple of ton trailer around Europe. Huge cost to the UCI, but it does give us insight into everything. We recently, sorry.
I was just going to say, I watch a lot of cop shows. Do the UCI have any like underground, undercover operatives that can go around sussing out, if there are any of these technologies out there, like get the troops on the ground and penetrate the undercover ops? No?
We do have a VAR system. That's a really secret squirrel technology that we have. It's the UCI now has a van, basically what you see in soccer, that they connect all the various TV channels into, and the van has dozens and dozens of TV screens in there. We can basically see any angle, any camera view, whether it's from the helicopter, the motorbike, the lead car. We see everything what's going on. If we see any suspect bike changes, if we see any suspect items or pictures that we feel needs looking into, the chief commissaire will communicate that to me or my team that we saw this particular activity, and that bike or that rider's bike may be placed on the list of bikes that need to be scanned at the end of the day.
Oh wow, that's interesting. So it's like a bat cave with all the screens. It's awesome.
It is.
I'm putting my hand up for the job. I reckon, because I know a lot of the guys.
You'd be that security guard that
No, what you were saying, Dan, undercover. I could just be a friend and I'll talk
the rat.
Exactly, I'll catch him
UCI
out. But seriously, I don't believe that it could possibly happen at the top in the World Tour. The amount of involvement to do that, the people would have to be involved. I don't believe it would even be entertained by any World Tour team.
Oh, and the risk, you get busted. The whole empire falls over.
Yeah.
No, exactly.
It would never stay quiet.
Yeah. There's a lot of people that need to know about it, from mechanics to, sports directors. And you're absolutely right. You're right. The UCI had found a case, I think it was in 2016, a young female junior cyclist, back in cyclocross many years ago. But to this day, to the images that we have acquired, and there are thousands and thousands, there's no mention of or nothing that would suggest that anything illegal is going on.
Why don't we take a quick drinks break, and then when we come back, we'll ask about your role as head of road as well for the UCI moving forward.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Life is like a two-way street. It's about consideration and mutual respect. Roads are much the same. However you get around, walk, ride or drive, if we share our roads, we can all be safer. The Amy Gillett Foundation is Australia's peak cycling safety charity. Our mission is for safe cycling in Australia. Our vision is for 0 cyclist deaths. Over the last year, we've seen an enormous increase in people taking up cycling, whether it be for recreation, with the family, commuting, or even to start your own cycling career. We need to do more to make it safer for every cyclist. 20 cyclists every day are hospitalised, and 1 cyclist is killed every 10 days on Australian roads. So, the next time you jump on your bike or hop in your car, remember to practice the 4 C's. Be courteous, calm, considerate and conscientious. Every cyclist death is preventable, and we all deserve to get home safely. Please donate to help the Amy Gillett Foundation make the roads safer for you and for me.
Thanks again to Bike Exchange and the Amy Gillett Foundation. Now, Mick, you're now head of road as well as innovation. How did all of that come about, and what is the new role going to intake?
Well, the conversation started quite recently. I think the UCI were very happy with the progress we've made in innovation and some of the projects that we're working on. And it was David Lapartian, president, and Amina Lenaya, general manager of the UCI, that approached me and said, "We have some big plans in road, and Michael, would you like to, or would you be interested in taking up that role as of head of road and moving to head of innovation as well?" It was something that excited me, to be honest, straight away, because I've always been very passionate about road and cycling in general. And I think combining the 2 units of innovation and road, and I think coming to the challenges, I mean, we were talking about some of the challenges currently within the sport at the moment from the technical side. So being able to combine those 2 and having the holistic view over both programs, I think there's certainly some fertile ground there that we can leverage.
No, it's a big step, and congratulations, mate. It's enormous. So I understand that you're the boss of road, but what does that actually completely entail? Tell us a little bit more of what that means.
So in essence, the road unit has 3 core, let's say, columns. I would say it that way would be the best way to describe it. So that is teams and riders. So that comes under 1 column, and there's a specific manager, Julien Chavelon, one of my colleagues at the UCI. So he kind of manages all the team registrations, ensures that the bank guarantees are all in place from the teams. more or less allocating which teams are going into the World Tour level and which are going to the second and third categories. He also maintains contact with riders when they have a question about could be contracts or any specific rider item. The second item or second column is race organizers and I guess the rankings. I'm very happy to have just promoted my colleague Marie. She's been in the role for many years now as an assistant, and she's just moved up to the manager of that role. So again, closely working with the race organizers to ensure there's coherence of the race program, because I don't know how many races they are. We basically oversee every race that works under the UCI regulations. So that's well into the hundreds, if not thousands, across the globe, and managing all those race organizers is a huge task, and ensuring that they adhere to the UCI regulations, which is part 2 of the UCI regulations. And then the third part, which is where Matthew Knight, my predecessor, is now kind of leading, is around safety. So we're still fulfilling and still have a lot of work to do kind of within that safety role. But that again is talking to the various stakeholders such as AIGCP, again the race organisers, and ensuring all the regulations and standards, and strengthening, I should say, those regulations, working with partners about safety and trying to improve this really broad conversation about safety, which is become more and more important for us as the riders go faster and faster and faster.
The other thing I was going to touch on, because there's a great story on Cycling News overnight by Nathan Haas, who ran third in that recent gravel race in Italy, pro gravel race. And it was actually very well written story. Another Canberra boy like yourself, mate, and he's talking about, you shouldn't be calling it alternative because it's a fair part of the sport. So will that be coming underneath your umbrella as well, the gravel racing for the future?
I think that's a good question, John. I should put my hands out in front of me. I don't know as much as I should do about gravel. So we have an off-road department within the UCI that looks after mountain biking, cyclocross. It also looks after I believe, the BMX and other disciplines, kind of under the umbrella of off-road. To be honest, I don't really know where gravel sits, because it is that kind of hybrid between the two. The UCI recently announced a kind of UCI-sanctioned gravel series. But to be honest, I don't really know where the regulations sit. It's road regulations, track regulations that have been as disciplines around for 100 years, whereas the newer disciplines such as, mountain bike starting has been around for some time now, but those regulations by no means as developed as the traditional disciplines are. So it's an interesting space. There's no doubt about it. When we're seeing, the growth, particularly in America with gravel, it seems very much participation based. The industry are really enjoying this time now, because so many people are interested in purchasing gravel bikes. If you can get one, if you can get a bike, a lot of those are gravel now. So it will be interesting to see, where it goes. And like you said, John, there was a gravel race just recently in the Venice area. And on a side note, organized by Filippo Pozzato, which is an old teammate of mine. So that was really, really good to see Filippo, after retiring, he's back into the sport and contributing to such a great cause.
Yeah, look, just continuing on with that, just one bit, Dan, is that before, when you're looking at some of the gravel races in America, and as you mentioned, Mick, they're very much participation with a handful of top riders thrown in. But the recent one that we were just saying, with Nathan Hass talking about, was just pros only, but all gravel. And with the popularity now of the Strade Bianca and Paris Tours, which now goes into those gravel tracks through the vineyards at that last part, sensational race too, both beautiful races. I could see that gravel section of pro racing becoming bigger and bigger, and I think it's going to have to go under your hat, mate. I think it's going to be more the road than the recreational ones that they're running in America.
Well, I think it's an interesting question, John, because if I look through the lens of what's happening in Australia and race organisation on sealed roads and all the complexities that lay behind that, such as having alignment with the police, the associated insurances, making sure all the national safety requirements are met. That's becoming very, very complex now, and it's not only in Australia; it's in many countries. In America, it's in the UK. We're starting to, where I live in Switzerland, traffic. The whole country is just sitting in a traffic jam 24/7. So it is becoming a problem. And the question about gravel solving some of those issues by taking races and younger generations and also older generations and putting them on roads where traditional traffic is not there. They're not sitting in traffic jams. And of course, you need the landscape to be able to do that. Australia has fantastic. I grew up in Canberra. You leave the city, and you're on gravel roads really quick, and you don't see anyone for it could be for hours. America, some of the central states have wonderful landscapes for gravel racing. Canada, where I live in Switzerland, you're either going up or you're going down, and that network of fire trails just is not there. But for some countries, it really is, I think, a fantastic opportunity and an alternative to traditional road racing. Yeah.
I was going to ask, Mick, what do you think are the most pressing issues from a road perspective going into next year?
Well, I think it's coherence to the calendar. We have quite a lot of races, particularly in Europe, wanting to concentrate their dates around the kind of summer period. And we have so many organisers reaching out to us and saying, can I put this race on this date? Can I put it on that date, where the calendar is already full? And it becomes, I think, quite difficult for the spectators at home to follow that calendar, particularly if there's 2 or 3 races on the same date. And you get dispersion, I think, of the peloton, both in the men's and the women's. I think the women actually have a huge advantage here, is they're coming to the game with a really interesting product now, and women's cycling has made huge steps. And we have more organisers wanting to organise women races, but we're starting to already lose. Well, there's a risk that we'll lose the coherence of the race calendar, and because we want the best riders to be at the best races. And when you start to dilute, I think the peloton, I think the value proposition of the Women's World Tour will start to, may start to dissipate. So that's one challenges. And how long have you got, Dan? Because the challenges...
Just give us the most pressing ones, Nick.
No, I think also around women's cycling, and my colleague Morgan, I mean, she's really expert on this. There's a lot to do. And sometimes I read in the press about, there is some frustration out there, I think, in the community that we're not doing enough. But I can really guarantee you, some of my colleagues, particularly in women's cycling, I mean, these girls, these women, they're so passionate about what they're doing. They've got such a purpose. And when I see some of the comments in the press and then I compare that to the hours these people at the UCI are pulling, there's sometimes a bit of a mismatch, and that just could be due to communication. Maybe we need to do a better job of telling the world what's happening and the progress that women's cycling has made. It is, John. It's just amazing. But do we need to do more? Yes. Can we do it in a different way? Sometimes I think we fall into the trap of seeing women cycling through the lens of race organization. And to that point, yes, the women we all have to have races, but there are other means of creating value and a different value proposition through the use of technology. And the men, I think racing calendar and racing scene is complex, and we have a lot of stakeholders. But I think I may have already mentioned this last time I was on the show here. Was I think the women have a huge opportunity, to in certain places pass the men.
For sure.
With the use of that technology. So we're exploring some of those and engaging, with the various stakeholders on that.
I think last time you're on the. I was just going to say, last time you're on the show, we were talking about obviously Swift and how that's exploded, and then you see, Jay Vine, who won the Swift Academy, and he's had fantastic results this year. Have you seen it rise to the level that you thought it would, and how big is it getting moving forward? People getting on Swift and Full Gas and all these sort of online races.
Well, I think so. We just recently announced the 2022 World Championships, Esports World Championships, sorry, I should say, or UCI Cycling Esports World Championships, I should say.
Don't stuff that one up, mate.
Yeah, no way. They will take part on the 26th of February next year. And we just introduced quite a new innovative, I think, qualification pathway. So let me just give a little bit of background to that. So the UCI, in essence, is a representation of all its national federations. So there's all cycling, there's Swiss cycling, Italian cycling, France, Canada, America. We have 201 affiliated national federations at the UCI. Traditionally, the World Championships is for those national federations. So athletes will interact with their national federation to go to the World Championships. In cycling esports, it is a very young discipline. So we tried to create a new pathway for cyclists that may not be affiliated with their national federation. So what we're doing this year is we have already allocated 65 positions to our international federation. So not all our federations have the opportunity, but we're also holding 5 continental qualification events. So each of the 5 continents will be anyone on Swift who has, I think it's level 5, will be able to enter into that race. And if you finish in the top 5 of that race, you automatically have a start into the final at the World Championships. And what the really cool thing is, those people that may not have an affiliation with their national federation will, in essence, fast track them into the World Championships, but they are actually wearing their national jersey. And so we're trying to broaden, I think, the reach of cycling esports, because there also are what I call e-riders that don't go out into the road or the track and race traditional cycling. They're specific cyclists that stay indoors on their home trainers and do the majority of their work there. So due to the discipline being so young, we are trying to play around some of these things to ensure that the best athletes are there at the World Championships, and it's not only the athletes that our national federations are used to working with.
Iffy?
Oh, no, it's sensational. I was thinking about maybe the 6th continent. I'll go over to Antarctica and become the sole representative for Antarctica.
Yeah. The polar bear.
Down the road.
Yeah. Now, Mick, we know you're a busy man, and you've got another meeting after this. Johnny, anything you want to add before we let Mick go?
No, just congratulations, mate, and fantastic to have you on as always. And yeah, look forward to watching you progress. Look, I've got to congratulate the UCI over the last 2 years. Really, I think everyone's moving forward. We haven't seen the best racing we've ever seen in the last 2 years. Women's racing's taken a huge step, and it's starting to look as professional as the guys, and the women themselves have to be congratulated for the efforts and the rides they've been putting up. It's been amazing.
How was Paris-Roubaix? I mean, the inaugural Paris-Roubaix for women. I mean, it was just an epic event, and the way that they raced it.
Yeah.
I mean, Lizzie just
terrible day.
Took the bull by the horns and just owned that race, and it's just great. It really is, and the UCI. I know I work within the organisation, but we are really proud, and we're only, I think, a part of the way to reaching its full potential.
For sure, mate. And the fact that you got a promotion means you're doing a bloody good job, mate. And that's the main thing. So,
thanks, Dan.
We look forward to checking in again with you soon, mate. We've got a couple of comments before we go. Carolyn says, still doing Australia proud. Michael, she also said that the 7 gravel race is very popular there in WA. So, and then Brett said, Dan, your mic works better when it's switched on. I had it around the wrong way, so sorry about that. And Wendy Supervan says it's getting hard for even the clubs to keep up with the dates of everything on, with so many different races putting on. I think, as you said, like a little bit more sort of streamlined so that it is just a bit cleaner schedule throughout the whole year. Yeah, that's obviously something that'll take a bit of time, but you'll definitely get there, mate, because you're a super talent, you're a super bloke, and we appreciate you being on the detour.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, John. All the best. Take care.
Mate.
Mate. Take it easy. Michael Rogers, superstar Iffy.
A legend. Yep.
And as he said, I mean, the advancements, particularly as we're talking about in female cycling, the thing that you want to see is particularly with the coverage, because, I mean, you see a lot of teams really struggling financially, but I think we were talking about this with Spratty last week, that the more coverage, the more exposure, the better the TV product looks. It's going to be better for everyone, because they're seeing that people want to watch like women's cycling. Like the anticipation for Paris-Roubaix was huge. I was more excited for that than the men's race. So fantastic. Just give them a chance.
It was almost like, I reckon about a year ago, someone clicked the switch and people started to realise that actually having a women's team is a fantastic way to promote your business, value for money, and that's what you've seen that happening, and they're getting stronger and stronger and more professional.
Got some more feedback coming in. John Stevens said a bit earlier, RE last Thursday's show, I've been forwarded a complaint to YouTube fact checkers. If Iffy had been a World War II navigator, his plane would have bombed Switzerland. He was talking about when you're trying to do the map for the Tour de France.
I was spot on. Hey, Switzerland, come on.
Yeah. Anyway. And Chris Peters was talking about the track racing. Is there any option of having them all ride the same bike? This would put them all on the same level playing field.
I love the challenge and the innovation. Who wants them all on the same bike? They're not robots. The fact all of this work that goes in with who's coming up with the best, little not trick, but I didn't like the Danes putting that tape on. That was just pushing ridiculous. But the innovation of the bikes. If you took that out, we would all lose from it. You watch what's happened over the years with, the different style of frames and everyone trying to beat the other. I think it's fantastic.
And also, Wendy Supervan said again, Dan John, I heard Bike Exchange team has a new name now. That was on Cycling News. Bike Exchange Jayco.
There you go.
So Jayco.
All the time.
Have they been involved with cycling at all, Jayco?
A couple of years, I think. About 30 we go back. Well, I mean, Jerry had a Jayco professional team with Scotty McGrory and Dean Woods and all of those guys back in 1993. So that's going back quite a whiles, mate, quite a ways. And so it's fantastic. Of course, the Bike Exchange team, Bike Exchange Jaco is now going to be. We wish them all the best. And there's some exciting things going to be announced very, very shortly about that as well.
Well, I reckon Jaco, obviously we know Jerry's connected with Jaco in Australia, but Jaco is obviously an American brand. So the American brand will be licking their lips too, because there's a lot of publicity that they'll be able to get on the back of that. Surely there's a contra deal. They can send over some spare parts to Danny on.
I don't know what the connection is nowadays with Jaco and America, because Wilbur, the wonderful family who used to own Jaco in America, were very close with Jerry, but they sold out to one of the big multinational American companies last year, or maybe even longer ago. So I'm not sure what the connection is there, but maybe they could tip some dollars in. I'm sure if it can be done, Jerry will be there. He's got lots of things happening in America with his stage show, Moulin Rouge, topping the list in New York recently. So who would know?
Jerry should do the name change just before the Tour de France and call it like Team Moulin Rouge. Imagine how cool the bus would look. Fantastic.
Well, we'll be there, mate. I'll suggest it to him.
Yeah, okay. A lot of people agreeing with the comments about women's cycling. Gavin says the increased coverage of women's cycling was great, and they have a wonderful product when the racing in some ways is more aggressive than some of the men's tours. Totally agree. Brett Richardson says women's cycling is more exciting to watch. Is a little less formulaic and the results less predictable than the men's racing. And then Scotty Scooter McGrory says, yep, I was in the original Jaco team. Think Jerry will give me another go?
Yeah, no worries, Scotty. Yep, you can you can take over my role as team mascot.
Well, you won't have to pay full price for the bikes if you do. You'll get a good discount.
He's never paid full price for a bike, mate.
And the Wheel Wizard, he's in a cranky mood. G'day over there in the UK. Get UCI to fix track racing.
Yeah, you did right, Will Wizard. I agree with you on that. And they are working on it. I mean, between the UCI and the Olympic Federation, what they did to track racing was ridiculous. And it's starting to find its way back out. I don't know whether the Sixers will ever get back to what they were. Probably not, but they're an important part of it as well. But I know there's more interest from the countries now on track racing. Back 4 or 5 years ago, it was Australia versus US and America and the French a little bit. And now, Denmark stepped in and the Spanish are really good. So there's a lot more happening. Belgium are very good on the track as well. Holland, of course. So it's becoming a much better competition at world level. But it needs a bit more structure. So the World Cups they tried to do haven't really worked, I don't think. It needs a structure that can work a bit more like the Road World Tour. Let's see what we can do.
Will Wizard also says, can only hire USA Jaco RVs in Europe. That was the problem with the 92 Jaco team. USA head office didn't want to contribute. He's got the goss on everything.
He's right there. He's right there.
Scooter also says his bro-in-law Dennis Casey is really pushing him to do the Unbound gravel race in the US next year, 300 Ks. So these ultra races are becoming huge as well.
Oh yeah, they're amazing races. I followed one recently, Unbound gravel one in America. And it was a bike race and a half. And I just see there's one coming up just next week in Kansas, and our mate Evenepoel is riding his first gravel race, but he's chickened out. He's not doing the big one. He's doing the smaller distance one. But anyway, he's going over there having a bash at it, which is great. Yeah.
All right. And then you want to add before we have to go, Iffy?
I reckon we should just give Phil Liggett Safari a little plug if we can. I always
sure. I've got the video ready to go. Here's Phil Safari.
Hi everyone, it's Phil Liggett here, and it's time to get my African safari on the road again. We're heading back to the Kareka Game Reserve in the Eastern Cape of South Africa, where animals, including the rhino, roam freely. We did 4 great rides in June, and now, with 2 new ones, we're set to go again. There will be eminent guests to answer your questions on the wildlife and also offer an opportunity to win amazing trips to Careca. We'll chat to one another and you don't even have to ride thanks to Full Gas, who will set you up to watch on Zoom when you enrol and make a donation. We have 4 rides, 1 per month, starting on September 19. They last an hour, and if you have a smart trainer you can pedal your way through the reserve, or you can just sit back with a cup of tea. In either case, knowing that your participation is helping keep the animals safe and free to roam. Come and join me, and all the information you need to have is at careca.co.za/peloton, and let's go.
Good on you, Phil. Get involved, and Will Wizard finishes it off. More goss. USA gravel organisers have told the UCI to keep out.
Well, there are different. What's happening in Europe on gravel and what's happening in America are two different things. And you're probably right. They don't need UCI to be involved in that model that they're doing over there.
Yeah, if it's working, they don't have to deal with restrictions and rules.
And it's a participation model with a few high profiles whacked in at the top end. And it's working well for them. But what they're trying to do in America is for the world tour teams to be able to take on some gravel racing, which is what they just did. And I think that's got some real potential. And as Mick Rogers just touched on, one of the big challenges we have in Australia and a couple of other countries as well, but I know that the challenges here is closing the roads to run bike races. It's a serious issue and a lot of cost. Whereas when you start mixing it, a bit like the Strada Bianca, but we should do more of that where you can have a circuit that doesn't have to go into the town because you can use a couple of gravel roads to connect, and so you have a combination of the two. That's going to become more and more.
Why don't you create a cyclocross circuit at Mitchelton Winery, John? That'd be a great spot to do a track.
Funny you say that, mate. Funny you say that. We were working on that with one of the Amy's rides a few years ago, but we never got it off the track. But we've got a fantastic course for a cyclocross at Geelong, which we're going to do as part of the Bay Quiz. We haven't got time to do it for next year. We're got a big announcement about to be made, for the Bay Quiz for next January, and we're close to getting it all together. But we haven't got time to do a cyclocross as a part of that. But maybe 2023.
Well, speaking of Amy's ride, the kit should arrive tomorrow, Johnny. The detour kit, because it was going to be ready a week before.
Yeah.
So I'll chuck the kit on just as a once-off, take a photo, and then I'll hand it off to the old man because he'll actually wear it in sale. You should get a laugh out of that. Oh, the Free Ranger's got an idea for you. The Bay Grits.
I love it. All
right. They always say leave on a high, and we'll leave on Free Ranger's zinger. We'll see you again on Thursday. Make sure that you keep telling your mates about the show, youtube.com/Detour Podcast, and make sure you subscribe, because if we give you a bonus episode, you'll get a notification before Thursday. But we'll be back again Thursday night, 6:30. See you then, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to Mick Rogers, doing a great job. Got promoted. Legend.
This is the winning ride of the Tour de